Today, we're going to discover the most creepy and bizarre practices that were deemed completely normal under Emperor Nero's rule. From the shadowy corridors of power, unraveling the unsettling truths of Nero's rise, marriages stained by madness, political betrayals, and a fiery controversy that shook the very foundations of Rome. But here's the kicker: we're holding back sinister secrets that will most definitely increase your curiosity. The Dark Ascent, Nero's rise to power and family politics. The twisted tale of Nero's reign begins with Roman royalty, a complex web that Nero found himself in from the moment of his birth. Born as Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, he was the great-great-grandson of Emperor Augustus. Nero wasn't exactly the direct heir to any throne, but he was always part of the royal family. Nero's lineage traced back to Agrippina, his mother, and Gnaeus, his father, who passed away at a young age. Agrippina was deeply part of the elite political circles of Rome and then married Emperor Claudius, who adopted Nero. Despite having another son, Claudius seemed to favor Nero. This favoritism certainly didn't escape the watchful eyes of his advisors, especially Nero's spoiled, reckless, and at times cruel nature. Yes, you could say he was doomed from the start. Now, Claudius succeeded the current emperor, the notoriously crazy Caligula, following assassination by his guards. The advisors, for some reason, feared that Nero might also inherit the cruel and reckless traits of Caligula if he ascended the throne after Claudius. However, luckily for them, Nero at this point displayed little interest in power. His mother, Agrippina, on the other hand, was a whole different crazy. Some accounts described her as just downright evil, violent, and vicious. I guess you could very easily say it runs in the family. Her life was marked by strategic power plays, and her marriage to Claudius seemed like another power move in her complex game. Some people even say, wait for it, she had Nero's biological father killed for this marriage because the ultimate power grab would be her son Nero ascending the throne, which at 17 he did. How? Because of the sudden death of Claudius. Did she actually feed him poisoned mushrooms? We'll never know. But nonetheless, he died, and Nero took the throne. However, Nero, distancing himself from his mother, triggered a series of unforgettable events. Agrippina then began to side with Nero's stepbrother, Britannicus. Enter Britannicus, Nero's stepbrother, and a potential rival for the throne. Learning of Agrippina's plotting with Britannicus, Nero took drastic measures. He poisoned his own stepbrother Britannicus, eliminating a threat to his rule. But the real turning point was when Nero started questioning the necessity of Agrippina's presence. I'm starting to get a little bit of Saltburn vibes. Convinced that he could do without her, Nero created a horrific plan. He had Agrippina board a boat designed to sink, anticipating her easy demise. Yes, we're talking about his mother. However, Agrippina, displaying a resilience that would haunt Nero, managed to swim to shore. Yet Nero's evil determination stood strong. As Agrippina reached the shore, Nero's men awaited her, and they mercilessly stabbed her to death. It's even reported that as the soldiers approached, she told them to stab her in the stomach, where she had nurtured the monster. There are, however, multiple historical accounts for why Nero got his mother murdered, and the most common one being that she herself was actually plotting to kill Nero, so he pulled an Uno reverse card on her. The official narrative, later spun by Nero, attempted to paint Agrippina's death as a suicide. However, whispers of Nero's role in his mother's death began to circulate, creating public distrust. The twisted knots of Nero's marriage and creepy affairs. As we delve into the chaotic pages of Nero's life, we stumble upon a chapter filled with the twisted dynamics of his marriage to Octavia. The tale that unfolds within the walls of their union takes a dark turn. Nero and Octavia's union, kicking off like a grand Roman drama on June 9, 53 AD, was far from the peaceful union one might expect. Described by the Roman senator Tacitus as an aristocratic and virtuous wife, Octavia held moral standards that clashed with Nero's desires. The Roman people, on the other hand, saw Octavia as this charming, virtuous figure, a real people's favorite. basically the Princess Diana of the times. But here's the twist, it really wasn't a fairy tale romance. The young and not-so-virtuous emperor, immediately bored and frustrated by Octavia's mindset, found himself angered by her commitment to honor. I mean, we're talking about a guy who wasn't exactly thrilled about moral standards. So, in a fit of rage, Nero's temper escalated to a disturbing level. Fueled by boredom and frustration, he tried to literally strangle Octavia. Yeah, you heard that right, choking, as a form of couples therapy, apparently. But wait, there's more. The real kicker, Octavia couldn't bear Nero any mini-emperors, and that didn't sit well with the guy who needed a proper heir for his empire. For Nero, the absence of an heir was a grave concern. It wasn't just a matter of personal lineage, it was a question of the empire's stability. In his pursuit of securing a successor, Nero turned to affairs with other women, one notable figure being Poppaea Sabina. And guess what? When Poppaea became pregnant with Nero's child, the emperor decided to take a drastic step. Now, what's a Roman emperor to do when faced with the possibility of a legitimate heir? Easy. Divorce your wife and banish her. The Roman people, known for their love of a good scandal, were not having it. The divorce and banishment of Octavia did not unfold as smoothly as he anticipated. The Roman citizens adored her and protested like there was no tomorrow, carrying statues of Octavia through the streets. Nero, in a classic power move, saw this as an opportunity to flex his imperial muscles. Instead of a romantic reunion with Octavia, he decided to show the people who's boss. In an act that would make even Cersei Lannister raise an eyebrow, Nero had Octavia killed. Yep, you heard it here first. On June 8, 62 AD, Octavia faced a traditional Roman suicide ritual. It was a messy, dramatic end to a marriage that started with high expectations, but descended into chaos and betrayal. Marital madness and psychological destruction. Hold on to your togas, because Nero's descent into married life with Poppaea takes a gruesome turn. No one really knows why he did what I'll tell you next. Was it severe anger issues, political failures, or just plain madness? But imagine this, Nero loses his cool in a fit of rage when Poppaea is heavily pregnant with her second child. But this isn't your average lover's quarrel. No, Nero goes full-on unhinged and kicks Poppaea to death. Yes, you heard it right, he aimed for his pregnant wife's stomach, creating a horrifying double murder scene that even the ancient Greeks wouldn't have scripted. But here's where it gets even more horrifically creepy. Nero, having lost whatever shred of sanity he had left, decides to preserve Poppaea's body. He puts her on display in a glass case, like some twisted museum exhibit. Why? So that Nero can visit his dead wife each night and have one-sided conversations with her lifeless form. Oh, and the madness certainly doesn't stop there. Nero, wandering the streets, spots a 13-year-old boy named Sporus. In a disturbing and quite disgusting case of obsession, Nero becomes convinced that Sporus looks exactly like Poppaea. So what does he do? Nero has Sporus kidnapped and castrated, an extremely disturbing and scary act that defied reason. He then dresses Sporus in Poppaea's clothing, effectively turning him into a living, breathing mannequin of Nero's deceased wife. But wait, it gets even stranger. Nero forces Sporus to appear in public as his wife, in the luxurious clothes of a Roman empress. A bizarre display of Nero's messed up psyche playing out in the streets of Rome. And if that weren't enough, Nero takes his theatrics to a whole new level. He starts appearing in theatrical productions, wearing a mask and playing the role of none other than Poppaea herself. It's a twisted performance that blurs the lines between reality and madness. Betrayal theatrics and murder mysteries. As Nero's rule descended further into chaos, a dark plan played out in the chambers of power, the Roman Senate. Nero's relationship with the Senate had long been quite strained, with whispers of members wanting him out. The emperor's unpredictable behavior and reckless decisions had already created an extremely hostile atmosphere. One of the defining moments of Nero's Senate vendetta was the conspiracy against him. A group of influential senators plotted to end Nero's oppressive reign, viewing him as a threat to the stability of Rome, like some sort of a spy movie. However, Nero's spies found out, and the emperor, now full of paranoia and revenge, laid out a chilling plan. In a cruel display of power, Nero ordered the execution of numerous senators involved in the plot. The once powerful Senate was now nothing but cries of those about to die. This so-called power move by Nero stained the very foundations of Roman governance. And while on the topic of his murder marathon, it was also suspected that after he killed Octavia, the people of Rome had turned against their emperor and his advisors. So a top-secret James Bond-type group of Roman politicians orchestrated a daring plan, the assassination of Nero. However, the conspiracy failed from Nero's watchful eyes. The emperor, always very observant of threats to his power, uncovered the insidious plan before it could be executed. And then, as you guessed, Nero's reaction was swift and brutal. In a chilling display of authority, Nero executed the 20 individuals who he thought were in on the plot, sending shockwaves through the Roman political landscape, and another dozen faced exile. Nero's fiery controversy, economic downfall, and final blow. Rome, the Eternal City, witnessed a catastrophic event that would echo through history, the Great Fire of 64 AD. The flames consumed 2/3 of the city over 6 agonizing days, before being somewhat controlled, only to start once again for another 3 days. Over a total of 9 days, Rome was burned to the ground. Just imagine 70% of the city completely destroyed. Homes, temples, markets, livelihoods, all burned to the ground. The legend, and also the controversy that emerged, was that Nero, the man in charge, couldn't care less about the destruction of his city because he was too busy playing the fiddle. But let's set the record straight. Fiddles weren't even a thing back then, and Nero wasn't strumming a tune amid the inferno. In reality, he was at a countryside estate and only returned when news of the disaster reached him. Contrary to the tale, some accounts state that Nero opened the doors of his palace to the displaced, offering shelter to those left homeless. Yet this noble gesture would be very hard to believe due to the events that followed. Why? Because the aftermath of the fire saw Nero embarking on an ambitious construction project, a colossal new palace, the Domus Aurea. Rising from the ashes, this palace included a towering 120-foot statue of Nero himself. This fueled suspicions among Romans, and they circulated that Nero orchestrated the fire as an excuse to clear the land to build a brand new luxurious palace that would take up 1/3 of Rome. To deflect these accusations, Nero needed a scapegoat, someone he could shift all the blame towards, and you won't even believe what he did next. Enter the Christians, a small and politically weak cult in Rome at the time. Blaming them for the blaze, Nero unleashed a wave of persecution on them. These Christians faced gruesome fates. They were ordered to be torn apart by wild animals, death by crucifixion, decapitation, and worst of all, even being burned alive to provide light during Nero's horrific outdoor festivities at night. The Great Fire became a turning point, not only in Rome's physical landscape, but also in Nero's public image, setting the stage for complete public hatred. As Nero enjoyed the luxury of his new palace, Rome was in financial shambles. The cost of Nero's architectural makeover forced him to pull a financial flex and devalue the currency by 10%. Revolts were also popping up like mushrooms in Judea and Britain. Not only that, but Nero, in true dramatic fashion, escaped off to a relaxing vacation in Greece for 15 months, leaving Rome to deal with the mess. Art, music, and theatrical performances became his new obsessions. When he finally came back into Rome, things had gone from bad to worse. The Senate despised him at this point and had enough of Nero's shenanigans, declaring him an enemy of the people. Then accusations flew. He started the Great Fire, killed his mom and his wives, and the whole story. In a last-ditch effort to fix the mess, Nero turned to Vindex, his advisor, with an extremely controversial and somewhat absurd solution. "Hey, let's raise taxes," he said. But this was Vindex's last straw. Instead, he teamed up with the governor of Spain and the royal guard to plot the ultimate showdown with Nero. But the emperor, already having lived a life of paranoia and madness, likely sensed the threat. Waking up one day to a hauntingly quiet palace, Nero realized he was all alone. Desperate for some company, he sprinted through the empty halls, asking the walls if he had any friends left. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Panicking, Nero fled to his countryside estate with a handful of slaves. Vindex, on the other hand, sent soldiers after him. Nero, facing the inevitable, begged his slaves to do him a solid and end it all. Always the showman, he decided to stick to what he knew best, killing, and since his soldiers declined to kill him, Nero took matters into his own hands, literally. A knife to the chest, and he bid the world goodbye with a final line. "What an artist dies in me." Classic Nero. And just when you thought Nero's story couldn't get any crazier, the grand finale was the demise of Rome's infamous emperor. But certainly not the only creepy thing in his life. Nero's dark ascent to power, messed up marriages, brutal betrayals, and a fiery controversy that engulfed Rome itself, his reign was anything but ordinary. Now, if you've been captivated by this insane journey through history, hit that like button, subscribe for more tales, and don't forget to comment about what other untold stories you'd like to know.